PowerBoat Television is brought to you by Yamaha. Conquer water with Yamaha. Cruisers Yachts. Luxury yachts and bow riders for all your adventures. And BoatBuys.com. 60,000 new and used boats for sale.
Welcome to PowerBoat Television and welcome to Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. Right now we're standing on top of what's affectionately known as the Rock for obvious reasons. And this is right in the heart of Old Town. Now, back in the day, surrounding the Rock were all the shacks and shops and everything. Now, the new town is built behind you a little bit south. You can see some of the high-rises back there. All around us, though, is Yellowknife Bay. On that side is a little offshoot of Yellowknife Bay known as Back Bay. That's where the Great Slave Yacht Club is. We're gonna check out some boats there. And over here, you can see some of the houseboats. Now they're beautiful, but they're a little contentious apparently. I think they add character.
Stopping here is a must and the perfect place to get your bearings. It doesn't take long to see that water is key around here. For fun and for business. For a collection of the best boats around, it's gotta be the Yacht Club, though some boats have clearly seen better days. Here we met up with some members and went out with Hack, who owns the largest private boat on the lake, a Carver 450 pilot house. As Hack took us on a harbor cruise, I chatted with Evan Walls, who's been involved with the club for more than 15 years and is a past Commodore.
The boating scene in Yellowknife I would describe as varied. There are multiple types of boating that one can enjoy. We've got a strong group of people that like to canoe, kayak, paddleboard, non-motorized watercraft. There's also a solid sailing community in the city, probably because of the size of the body of water that we're on and how far people sometimes have to go. And then, of course, there are every shape, size, and type of power boats.
On that note, I will admit that I didn't think I would be on a 45-foot Carver sedan bridge on Great Slave Lake.
You would not be alone in that. People don't necessarily think that you're going to find this type of boat or these many boats here. And when we get back to the club, you'll see, well, this boat is unique in that it's 45 feet. There are a lot of 30 and 35-foot boats at the club.
Yeah, there's a lot of cruisers. A shorter season than down south a little bit, but you guys make up for it with all that extra daylight.
Well, yeah, you know, I was actually thinking, how would that compare to other jurisdictions? We typically put our slips in the water. If we're lucky, we'll put them in the water May long weekend.
Oh.
And we usually pull them out Thanksgiving.
That's pretty much bang on what a lot of people do down in Southern Ontario.
So last year we had 21 seasons of the slips being in the water. Now you can't get out on the lake until all of the ice leaves, which is usually the middle of June, but for the first 2 weeks, people can do day cruises, out into the bay here. And as you point out, while we might have a shorter season, arguably, we make up for it because we have 24 hours of daylight in the summertime. So.
Something I've learned about you Northerners, you don't mess around with that daylight. If it's up, you're up. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
If you're visiting, by the way.
Somebody said you can sleep in the winter?
Yeah.
That's true.
And while it may seem odd, given there are very limited slips and services for boaters anywhere on the lake, these are a passionate bunch. The Yacht Club is one of only 3 marinas on the entire lake that anyone can tell me about, so you'd have to be passionate to make this giant and secluded body of water your boating backyard.
And just to give you an idea, Great Slave Lake is the 10th largest lake in the world. It is the deepest lake in North America. It's got depths of well over 2,000 feet in spots.
Jeez.
Yep, and I can attest to that. I was recently out on a trip and my Garmin GPS bottomed out at 2,472 feet. It's probably deeper than that. It was just what I went over at the time.
Right.
It measures, the Great Slave Lake measures about 200 kilometers, wide, and about 460 kilometers end to end.
That means heading off the docks here is like heading into the unknown every time. Because help will come if you get in trouble, but it may take a while.
When you leave here, you leave heavy. You leave fully provisioned for fuel, for food, for as long as you want to stay. The one exception is water. We don't have to bring water with us because we just take it right out of the lake.
I love that.
It's a pristine lake.
When we went from Hay River over to the Mackenzie, we stopped in the middle, and Spencer said, yeah, he's like, have a glass. He's like, we got to do a toast. We're like, really? He's like, you're not going to drink anything cleaner than this.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. Yeah, we're very lucky that way.
Back at the dock, we took a little tour to check out the club, which is more than 30 years old and has 60 boats and about 100 members. And there's quite the collection here. Lots of fishing boats, and about a half dozen cruisers in the 32 to 35 foot range, including the Princess 35 flybridge that Evan owns, which is where we said our goodbyes so he could enjoy this beauty of a day with his family. Later in the show, we head out on a much smaller boat and get out of the city to experience some of the blissful solitude. Totally redesigned from the Skeg to the Cowling, these are the latest and greatest Mercs. Early morning, early February, outside the Orlando International Airport, Mercury Marine loaded the top boating media in North America onto a bus and drove us for 30 minutes across the middle of Florida, out of the city and onto a highway where police blocked the road and escorted us down to the very end of a dead-end street, to Lake X, a private, totally secluded lake that traces its connection with Mercury back to the 1950s, when the founder, Carl Kiekhaefer, bought it and used it for top-secret testing. Here, he famously staged a 25,000-mile, non-stop endurance run to prove his engines would last. They fueled up on the go and had headlights mounted for the night runs. Averaging more than 30 miles per hour for 34 days, 11 hours, 47 minutes, and 5.4 seconds. Then, they did it all again for 50,000 miles. Mercury sold it in the 1980s, but it remains undeveloped and in private hands. And for 2018, Mercury's back with a new lease and a new launch.
It's like the marine equivalent of Area 51.
Many of the buildings remain untouched, including the iconic tower that they monitored that endurance race from. So my expectations are mighty high for the new product. And here it is, totally redesigned from the Skeg to the Cowling. These are the latest and greatest Mercs. Unveiled to the public at the 2018 Miami International Boat Show, I was one of the first people ever to see them, let alone test them out.
It's go time. So now we are out on Lake X, an undisclosed location. And I am here with John Pfeiffer, president of Mercury Marine. How are you?
Fantastic. Couldn't be in a better place today than this, Lake X.
It's very cool. Great history, but we're not here to talk about history.
Right.
We're here to talk about the future.
That's right.
So tell me about these very funky new outboards.
So this is our new 3.4 liter naturally aspirated outboard engine. It's in a 175, 200, 225 configuration. This is a Mercury 4-stroke product, kind of built off the foundation of the 150 and the 7590 115, where we want that larger displacement, naturally aspirated engine. We make it nice and light, a lot of power.
And the performance is the best you guys have done.
Not the best that Mercury's done. This is the best the industry has ever seen.
Wow.
It's a new benchmark for the industry in 175, 200, 225 category. They're lighter than the closest competitor, and this was from scratch, right? It's not a derivative. We've ramped up the idle charge because consumers want more and more electronics on their boat.
Right.
And we wanted to be able to deliver enough power to charge all the peripheral equipment that people want without depleting the battery. So that's another really nice feature that people will really like on this product.
Absolutely.
Well, you've been standing back here the whole time. We need to get you right up in the cockpit so you can feel this thing yourself.
Yes, sir.
Pay attention to the torque all the way through.
You hanging on?
No, I'm gonna come
You
right
come
up
here?
here with you. And now bring it back to where you're just on plane.
Okay.
And then we'll feel the mid-range when you hammer it again.
Yeah.
Feel the torque.
Okay.
Just punch it. There you go.
That's impressive. I'm gonna do that again. That's fun. It's like the love child of a Pro XS and a Verado.
Yeah.
You get the power and the smoothness all in one. That will not translate for TV, but trust me, it's impressive.
Back at the docks, we checked out the other options on display. Not as revolutionary as the engineering, but great to finally see. There are now multiple color options and combinations.
Sometimes when there's something brand new, you're too focused on what's there and you miss what isn't there. And what isn't there on these is there's no latches to remove the cowling. And that's good, especially for saltwater environments, because there's no salt getting in. Terrible for corrosion. Well, in one of those how did it take so long ideas, there's now the service door on top. Dipstick, you can check your oil levels. You can fill the oil right here. Easy peasy. And if you want to take the cowling right off, well, that happens through here as well. That's the handle. Now we can remove the whole cowling without having to lean over the back of it.
But you do the maintenance and checks so you can run the thing. Pitter patter, let's get at her.
Historically, one of the reasons people would shy away from outboards was because of the noise. But the modern outboard is so quiet. And this brand new Mercury, even though it's a 225 horsepower beast, is quieter than most new outboards. That beep from the ignition is the loudest part of starting it. And then when it's idling, the water coming out, if you have a well-working impeller, that water splashing is the loudest part.
The acceleration is truly impressive, and the wide open throttle has you flying across the water.
But most people don't hammer the throttle out of the hole unless you're testing a boat. And rarely do people run at wide open throttle when they have friends on board. But what almost everyone does is mid-range acceleration, and that might be my favorite thing about the new Mercs. Check this out. We're currently doing 27 miles an hour at 3,000 RPM. Jesus, lost our cameraman. Woo! That was awesome.
This had me giggling like an idiot all over the largest privately owned lake in Florida.
To quote my 2-year-old son, more, more. Wow. That's so cool.
One of the great things about these Zodiacs is the hull. You can really count on them to perform in big conditions.
Zodiac is one of the most recognizable brands when it comes to inflatable boats. Their original design dates back to the 1930s, but became renowned when used by Jacques Cousteau to explore dive sites in the 1950s. Today, we're going to take a look at the latest Pro 7 from Zodiac, a new 22-foot rigid hull inflatable. With a self-bailing deck and 22.5-inch Hypalon tubes, the Pro 7's inshore maximum load capacity is over 4,300 pounds. Combined with a 24-degree deep V fiberglass hull, this is one very capable boat. Standard features include a fiberglass bow step with anchor roller, heavy-duty mooring bollard, anchor locker, 2 sub-deck lockers, double grab lines on the inside and outside of the tubes, and a stern reboarding ladder. The 52-gallon fuel tank is integrated into the floor to keep the center of gravity as low as possible. Our test boat was equipped for recreational exploring and a bit of fishing. The wider HXLS console with a forward seat provides additional dry storage and easy access to instrument wiring. The bolstered leaning post is quite comfortable and has adequate storage below the seat cushions. The T-top is all new and can be unbolted from the console should you want to secure larger items inside. The rear bench seat and roll bar are optional, as is the LED cockpit light. Anywhere you find a multi-fix mount, you can safely secure a number of accessories such as rod, bait, tool, and even cup holders to suit your needs.
Zodiac's Pro 7 is designed to be a little more modular than the open boat, so this boat can be rigged in a number of different ways. This console, for example, is bolted down, so there's several different consoles that are available. You don't have to go with the top, and you can option with different seats. That means this is probably the most flexible layout from Zodiac in this size of boat. Now, because the Pro boats can be configured in any layout you want, you get to decide how you want to build the boat. So if you're doing a lot of diving and want more open space, you don't need the console at all.
With plenty of sun and about 15 knots of wind on Biscayne Bay, conditions were perfect to explore the capability of the Pro 7. The smooth Yamaha F200 has plenty of power to pull a skier or a wakeboarder. Time to plane was under 4 seconds with virtually 0 bow rise. But if you need more juice, the maximum rating for the Pro 7 is 250 horsepower.
One of the great things about these Zodiacs is the hull. These fiberglass hulls, they have a very deep dead rise on them, so when you go offshore, you can really count on them to perform in big conditions. The secondary benefit of that is the ride comfort.
This hull slices through the waves with 0 pounding. There is a fair bit of lean in the turns, but that helps isolate you from the cornering forces. The added buoyancy from the extra-large tubes provides the kind of stability that make inflatable boats so popular with search and rescue, and why they are just fantastic for exploring.
You just have to love how these boats turn. One thing I really like about these boats, I'm finding I'm sitting more than I'm standing. And I think a lot of that has to do with the design of these leaning post seats. They're really comfortable. They're in the perfect position, they're well cushioned, and these ones you can see have quite nice bolsters.
Not only are these boats highly functional, but they are built to last. Durable Hypalon tubing is optional on most inflatables, but standard on the Pro 7. If in 15 or 20 years you find the tubes wearing out, you can replace them. A feature exclusive to Zodiac.
So if you're in the market for a high-performance, commercial-grade inflatable, you really should check out a Pro 7 from Zodiac.
It has dropped a couple degrees and seems to be getting colder. And that's why. Big, wide open, Great Slave Lake.
Welcome back to Yellowknife, the capital of the Northwest Territories. And as such, it's the largest city here, with a population of about 20,000. It's modern, but with a rugged adventurer's spirit. The area really was opened up by bush pilots, and the pilot's monument atop the rock is a highlight. It's also practical, as there's a flashing light at the top of it to notify people and boaters nearby that there is float plane activity on the bay. It's a really neat place. On the one hand, downtown looks similar to a lot of small cities I've been to around Canada. And the geography is remarkably similar to where I fell in love with boating in central Ontario, other than the trees being smaller. But when you get out and away from the city, you really see the difference. The raw, rugged beauty and the tremendous solitude of the vast wilderness of the north. A great way to experience it is to go out with a fishing guide, someone who knows the bays and channels like the back of their hand. So we met up with Greg Robertson of Bluefish Services on our last day in the Northwest Territories and headed out on his Lund 2075 Pro Guide with a 115 horsepower Evinrude E-Tech, with tiller handle no less.
So in this area it's primarily pike fishing. Lake trout 50, 60 miles away in the minimum now.
So So when you're doing the tours, is it mostly pike, or do you do a bit of everything?
Yeah, I mainly do like 4-hour tours. I go out maybe a max of 15 miles or so, and either fish and then stop for something to eat after. It depends on what people want to do.
We cruise out of the bay past the houseboats. These are contentious because they don't pay taxes, so I'm told. But the colorful and large floating homes add some life to the bay in my mind.
How far are we going?
So we're going to go to Yellowknife Bay about 5 miles. Then I'll go left into the islands.
Past Detta, or?
Yeah, we'll go past Detta, into the islands, and we'll stop maybe about 10 miles out and try to catch some fish.
As we do the run south, we go past the First Nations community of Detta, population of about 210. To get here by road is 27 kilometers in the summer, or by ice road, it's only 6.5 kilometers in the winter.
Man, it's a nice day still. Once we shot south of Detta, you can see over my left shoulder, it has dropped a couple degrees and seems to be getting colder. And that's why. Big, wide open, Great Slave Lake, right there. That's a lot of water.
I'm glad I have a guide. There's no markings out here and very little in terms of distinct scenery. But it's far from monotonous or boring. It's almost zen-like in its beauty. I'd be able to soak it up a little bit better if I weren't starting to shiver.
Woo! Gonna have to cave and put the fleece on.
Fleece and my Lucky Lightning hat on, we set up along a small island.
All right, go for it.
Doesn't take long to catch lunch around here. And in the pristine water, it's open season. The Lucky Lightning hat strikes again. Heading further into the islands and farther from the city, you feel like you're a million miles away. Not another soul to be seen, just the wildlife, including a bald eagle perched high above our final fishing hole. And Baldy there was good luck. Hooked a big guy. But he spit the hook right at the boat.
Lost him.
So we head back for a secluded, but bear-free island and have a shore lunch with our freshly caught pike. Something I'd never actually tried eating, and usually people shy away from because of all the bones.
So what's the secret recipe?
Kind of developed it on my own, but got a little bit of flour and a little bit of cornmeal, a little bit of lemon pepper.
Man, is this some good eating.
Your TripAdvisor review will be 5-star. Greg, thanks, buddy.
Oh, you're welcome.
Of course, ending with a toast is always a nice cap to a trip. And if you're gonna toast in Yellowknife, you'd be remiss not to visit the oldest restaurant in the Northwest Territories, the mining camp-style log cabin of the Wildcat Cafe, which dates back to the 1930s. Until next week, cheers.